World leaders gather in New York today at the annual UN General Assembly meeting. Other notables, including Elon Musk, will be there too. He's set to introduce his friend and right-leaning Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni at the Atlantic Council Global Citizen Awards dinner. It's created some buzz around foreign policy types. Meanwhile, Musk X seems to be throwing in the towel in Brazil. The platform is complying with court orders that it had previously defied. For context, X and Brazil came to a head last month when the country's Supreme Court ordered the social network to take down accounts that Brazilian Justice Alejandro de Moraes ordered removed. Moraes insisted that the accounts in question threatened Brazil's democracy.
Fast forward to this past Friday, X's legal team in Brazil filed paperwork with the court that the network will comply with the court order, dealing a blow to free speech absolutist Musk. X had been blocked since August, but X's team hopes the courts will allow X to open back up in Brazil.
As if Musk weren't having a bad enough week, the party game Cards Against Humanity is also feuding with SpaceX with a $15 million lawsuit against that company. They claim SpaceX trespassed on a parcel of land on the U.S.-Mexico border that they purchased in 2017 after Trump won, planned to build his border wall. Cards Against Humanity crowdfunded a plan to thwart Trump's proposal. They raised money from 150,000 subscribers to buy the land on the border and prevent the wall from being built. Now they are alleging that SpaceX is encroaching on that land to house building materials for a nearby project. In a statement, the game's team wrote that after catching Musk's SpaceX on their turf, Musk's team, quote, gave us a 12-hour ultimatum to accept a lowball offer for less than half of the land's value. We said, go F yourself, Elon Musk. We'll see you in court. So I did not know about the Cards Against Humanity purchasing of a I guess they don't want the border wall built.
I guess not.
That's one way to do it is buy the land.
It's an option.
I looked at it, and that's incredible to me that they would think that was a good PR move, is to stop the borders. I mean, it's like the #1 issue in the country right now is Americans concerned about the situation at the southern border, and what was popular in 2017 was to make that effort more difficult, but different times.
Well, the government can still, this is an immigration conversation, but the government can still build on the edge of their land because they still have the rights to do that. With that being said, it is fascinating. I wonder if there's a sale on Cards Against Humanity, given how much they're taking on Elon Musk so aggressively. But listen, I mean, what's happening in Brazil, this is a huge market for Elon Musk. And he cried, he had a fit. I'm sure his legal experts around him and his lawyers were advising him to not stand down initially, and here he is. He's
yeah, I don't blame him for standing. I mean, it's not his fault. It's the authoritarian government's fault. Like, this is the same as when China says, okay, Google can be in China, but you can't have any unfriendly search results for Xi Jinping. And then the company says, oh, what do we do about this? And then finally they say, okay, fine. Like, it's bad. It's not the company's fault. What you do when an authoritarian government orders you, do censorship or die, like, that's them. That's their fault. I don't blame the companies for going along with it in order to operate in these countries to some degree, or saying no, or throwing up their hands saying we refuse. Either choice is morally valid. It's just, again, to people hate Elon so much, to like blame him. He put up a fight. He lost the fight because in the end the government is more powerful, and that's unfortunate. But I don't blame him for throwing a fit about it and then going along with it. He obviously still thinks it's bad.
Well, they were asking him to get rid of accounts like bots.
No, they were asking him to get rid of real people.
Disinformation and...
Well, they say it's disinformation.
I understand your reasoning. With that being said, there's also an argument to be made that Brazil, a democracy, not an authoritarian, they have a complicated democratic system. It's not all Lula all day long. With that being said, this decision was to protect some of the disinformation that was being spread within the previous administration under Bolsonaro. There were thousands and thousands of bots. There were actors who were, acting in free speech but being paid to push those messages out. It's not as simple as anybody gets to say whatever they want when the platform's algorithm, as we know, skews in one direction, and then those people are being boosted, and some of those folks are paid actors to say those things. It's not just a regular person on the streets expressing their opinions. It's somebody who has a stake in taking on their democracy.
I mean, some of the accounts that were ordered to be taken down were politicians. They were conservative right-wing politicians. I find that
Out of
very
office.
authoritarian. Yeah, but they're people expressing their views on political issues. I think if in the U.S., this is impossible in the U.S. because we have the First Amendment, but if the federal government ordered either under Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, let's say Donald Trump for fun. Trump is president and he orders Facebook delete the accounts of these 800 people, right. Some of them some of them Democrats, some of them political rivals, some of them just random people. We would all call that authoritarian. And you say, well, they're disinformation. That would still be considered authoritarian, right?
Right. I think disinformation as an excuse is being weaponized by all parties,
Yeah.
right? They're not getting to the real issue. And the real issue is that Twitter is not being run democratically. There are absolutely thousands, if not millions of bots out there that have agendas from you have big companies, you have foreign adversaries, you have democracies, you have campaigns buying these bots to boost their messaging and go after their rivals. That is not honest, that's not transparent, that's not democratic. Then you have the algorithm, which is not transparent or democratic. The moderation is not transparent or democratic. So the platform is not a true democracy, it's not a true town square. So if these governments, whether it's our government or Brazil or anybody or China, if they really want to make this argument that this needs to be a democratic place and that we believe in free speech, then it actually has to be a democratic place.
Well, but I would say, but the company is not required to operate in a democratic way. No company, in fact, does. I'm working for a company right now. It's not a democracy. There's a boss in charge, and you have a certain amount of leeway in terms of your. I have total leeway to say what I think on the show, and if they didn't like it, eventually they'd fire me or I'd stop working here. But it's not democratic. It's not like a vote of the people who work here. It's a business model. That's how the social media companies work. The democracy ought to be on the point of the government has to conduct itself in a democratic way or in accordance with democratic principles, one of which I would say, the most important one in fact, is free speech. And the whole, I obviously think the social media companies should be more transparent about how the moderation is done, in part because of how much we learned. We talked to Matt Taibbi about this earlier today, how much of the moderation was being done at the behest of government. Right. So I certainly want more transparency around that, and I want more transparency around the algorithm too. But the algorithm is always, the algorithm is mostly serving a business interest, right? It wants to show you more of the kind of content you want to engage with.
That's not entirely true. Okay, the business interest is outrage, right? They have psychologically designed there's so much research behind this now, that the more you get somebody addicted, the more enraged they are, the more takedowns, the more outrage that's on these machines, the more people click.
Well, if it bleeds, it leads. That's the media.
Exactly.
There's nothing unique to that about social media. That's just how the media operates.
Well, it's aggressively accelerated on social media.
But I don't know, I see more.
And there's no editors, too. So unlike The Hill or other news publications that are private, there is editorial oversight. Twitter doesn't have that. So, their excuse is we're a private company, but we also think that we should have absolute free speech, but you're not actually an absolute free speech, democratic platform. So if you're going to use that excuse, then you have to use it all around.
But I see more dissenting, contrasting opinions and articles and news and perspectives on social media, on X, than I do in the mainstream media. I see things going every which way. And sometimes you see things that, yes, are blatantly false, and it's fact-checked right on it. There's a community note under it saying why it's blatantly false.
It's not where...
it's not perfect, but it's starting to be like Wikipedia, I say, which is sometimes wrong, but is usually highly accurate.
It is nowhere near Wikipedia right now. I could open up Twitter right now.
It's going that way, and that's because having top-down, in my view, centralized control of information lends yourself toward massive error, and having bottom-up, crowdsourced, let everyone be their own fact checker. Sometimes you have errors, but you often have truth emerging. And that's the way I think social media companies should go. Or also just allowing more customization for the user experience. So if you don't want to see what the mainstream media considers disinformation, you should be able to just check a box, and then fine, all of that is out of your content. And
Instagram does that now, where you can choose not to see political content or to see political content.
I'm for that.
Which is great, but we're not getting there. And it doesn't even apply to the hate speech. The hate speech is still all over Twitter. Threats are all over Twitter, and he's not taking that on. So it's where free speech brushes up against disinformation that affects national security and disinformation that perpetuates hate speech. And I think that's where they're really trying to go at this from. I'm not saying that they're doing it the right way,
right.
And these are real issues. There is a real security situation on these social media platforms, whether it's personal security or national security.
I guess I just often don't trust the people saying that because they have used those two twin justifications, disinformation and hate speech, in the past, not to go after just legitimate foreign threats, but to, demonize, contrarians and conservatives and other people. And
absolutely,
that's why it's very skeptical.
It's an imperfect system, and they're using the loopholes in our free speech laws to go after anybody who stands in their way.
More Rising right after this.